In our gospel lesson today from Mark, it's interesting to me, the point that I heard most strongly in this text was go out into the world and take nothing but your staff and your sandals. I don't think that's really what it means to take Susan and Carol and Robert and we're going to go out into the world. I don't think that's what it means. But it means one of those sticks, a staff, oftentimes to keep away wild animals or to defend yourself in the time of need. But don't take extra provisions. Don't take a bunch of food or a bunch of money. Don't pack your belt full of American Express traveler's checks, if anybody takes those anymore, or 3 forms of credit cards. But you go out into the world taking only your staff and your sandals. Perhaps that's an allusion or reference to the Exodus, the eating of the Passover meal, when you were told that then you eat with your loins girded, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand, hurriedly. Maybe, perhaps, that's where that comes from. But I think important for me is that Jesus sent them out into the world. He also told them, a little bit of warning, not to take 2 tunics. Now that probably to most of us in the 21st century America means absolutely, positively nothing. So let me help them. Because I had to look it up. Why did they, what's it to do? The 2 tunics was like as my grandmother used to say, we would go out to dinner, I think I'll take my sweater in. It might be chilly. Just a little extra wrap around, to make sure not to fend off the cold. I always say when I become king of the world, restaurants are going to be required to have 2 air conditioning systems, one for the kitchen and one for the dining room. I should not freeze because they're hot in the kitchen. So I get this whole fear of being chilly. Jesus says, don't take that extra stuff. It's just going to weigh you down. Y'all know I love my stuff. You've seen my office. It's kind of this hedge of protection around me. It doesn't matter really how high the stacks get on my desk. I think it's just fine. I'll work sideways or whatever it is. It doesn't bother me at all. Bob said the same desk looked the same way when he was here, except it always had radio parts on it. I don't have any of those. I've got some other junk. But that provides protection, and I can understand where that would be and how that would happen. To be protected and a little bit of comfort. To take with me the comforts of homes. Have you ever noticed the difference when you go on vacation, perhaps you're on a trip, when you're flying and when you're going to drive? When I drive, I take everything but the kitchen sink. And sometimes I take at least the bathroom sink with me. Seems like I just keep piling stuff in. I might need this. I don't know what I'm going to want to wear a week from now. I have to take everything. And yet, by the time I've gotten vacation, I've crammed everything into the car. There's not a room to buy a postcard unless I send it home to come back. And then I get there and I'm like, why did I take all this stuff? I wear like 2 outfits the whole time. Not really, but you know what I mean. Just take it. Don't be burdened down with that. Go. And wherever you go and they invite you in to spend the night, stay with them. As long as you're in that town. Now, wouldn't that be nice? Show up, go over to Robert's house, knock on the door, say, hey, I'm here for a few days. I'm going to stay at your house. Then Robert's going to be like, 911, there's a crazy person on my doorstep. But the hospitality that was extended in the biblical days was a little bit different. I remember reading about, back in the 40s, when they used to have annual conferences in different towns. Statesville was one of the last ones, I do believe. And they actually would. There wouldn't be enough hotels for folks. And so people would have to stay in other people's homes. There weren't enough restaurants to feed people. So people would have to cook in their homes and bring a bunch of food in, so they could have these Methodist conferences. That would not happen now. And that's only a few years ago. But no, I don't want a bunch of people piling in my house. I love doormats. Y'all know that. I got different ones and I enjoy them. I don't have a single one that says welcome. I would love one that said should have called first, a week ahead of time. Don't just pile in my house. I have a dog. She loves my housekeeping. No one else does, but she does. She's used to it. We've kind of grown old together, as they say. She'll put up with me, and I put up with her, waking up at 3 ready to eat, or 4, or whatever time she gets ready to in the morning. But you know how it is how unsettled you get when somebody shows up in your house? What's the old expression, company and fish are both alike? They both begin to smell within 3 days. You know, they need to go. But that's not what Jesus is saying here. He's saying that the disciples go into a town, and wherever you're first invited into, stay in that house for as long as you're in that house. Don't wait till the people with the big house invite you to stay at their house. Just leave that little house that was humble and nice and let you stay there. Not to kind of, escalate. The other thing he's talked about is not to take money, so that people know that they're just not some magicians or barkers from a fair that have come through just to kind of swindle and to steal. No, it's they're there for a reason. They're there to carry out ministry, to carry out the ministry of God in God's world, to change the way things are, to free people from the sickness, to free people who have been possessed by demons, to free people from that which burdens them. All for nothing. All for nothing. But now it also comes with some warnings. I love verse 11 on that point. If the disciples are not welcome, they're told to go and shake the, what's the word? You know it. Dust off their sandals. Just to get rid of it. Sometimes we've heard that that's can be a way to curse people. But some of the commentators said that's really not what they thought was the implication here. It's like, I have done all I can do, and I can't do no more, and you're just going to have to be on your own. Like, it's not to, but it's just like, okay, this is not working out for us. You just got to, I'm going to leave. I think that's good for us to hear sometimes in situations of abuse or control, where it's not able to live into the freedom God intended us to have, the abundant life that's had. Sometimes there's a time in which you just got to, I'm done, back away. Keep going into that situation where there's pain and suffering. That's not healthy. It's not healthy. Shake the dust off. Let them be. Part of the reason is why we should do that is there people, and I think this is true from this passage, that where the disciples, there are people hungering for the faith, there are people hungering for love, and there are people hungering to be cared about. And if it's not working out, let's find somewhere else where we can be happy. That's an important part. The commentator put it this way, that the shake the dust off acknowledges the mysterious elements in human freedom. It just is. Sometimes this is the way it is. Christians aren't to waste their time, resources in such situations. Others are waiting to hear the gospel. Yep. They're human freedom. You know, it's not lost on y'all that today's July 4th, Independence Day of our country, 1776, July 4th, a day that we celebrate and remember and set off fireworks for 12 weeks, it seems like, all night long. We celebrate, and I think it's important for us to hear this, we celebrate the very best of what our country offers. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But we also acknowledge and understand that all that's not lived out. Everybody, in our country doesn't have this life, the same life, this liberty and this pursuit of happiness in the same way that perhaps we do. Oh, there's oppression around, there's systematic violence, there's all kinds of stuff. And if you really got digging into it, you can find it fairly easily. It doesn't take long. And yet at the same time, this freedom that we're offered begins to move us toward a new thing. There is a division between what we call patriotism and nationalism. Just a couple examples real quick. The love and affection of one's country, this is patriotism. The love and affection for our country stems from the ideals and values of that country. Nationalism, I am proud of the good stuff that America does. And yet nationalism is the love and affection for one's country stems from the belief in the superiority of that country above all other countries. Blinded nationalism. Heck with everybody else, we're an American. That kind of thinking. It's dangerous. Part of the beauty of American culture is that it's the melting pot. It's people have come together from all over the world here to make something different, to make a better life for themselves, to fear in their own lands persecution or threats of death. They come here for safety. And yet we know when we begin to look on the inside just a little bit, when we dive in deep, that is not always present for everybody. We're not quite yet to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all people. We've still got a ways to go. Patriotism believes that it looks toward the future as an opportunity to more completely live out these values. Humanitarian concerns all across our land and all across our world that we advocate, that we work, that we do without to be able to put pressure in which all people can have the same values, versus a blanket nationalism that looks toward the past as some golden era and strives to return to it. Everything that used to be is just wonderful. There's nothing better coming at us. No, there's an idea of that we can lift up the very best and to live out the highest ideals presented in our Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, that all people are created equal and that we actually mean it. We just don't write it down that we mean it. That everybody has the same opportunity. I'll offer a little bit. It's going around these days when the billionaires are having a race to get into space, they must have a little bit too much money. I mean, what is it that, the 60s, Kennedy set that goal to go to the moon, and America did it. And now we've got these 1, 2, 3 individuals that want to go on their own. The heck with everybody else. As long as they got their piles and piles and piles of money, they can do what they want to. But yet, I don't know about you, but the one check I hate writing worse than anything is a daggone tax check to the IRS, especially when I feel like they're never going to apply it to the right year. I've called them for a week and can't get anywhere. They do that all the time, and yet that's part of it. But yet what I do enjoy, and I'm glad I'm able to support, are the very best in the ideals, the way that we impact and shape the world, the way that we move science in a way that can reach out into the world, the way that all people have an opportunity. Oh, we're so far from the goodness and the purity of that, but yet at the same time, there's a constant striving for that. Speaking of freedom, it's funny, we've been up in the library, and somebody at one point loved Peter Marshall and everything about him, the chaplain to the Senate. There must have been, 12 books or something by him up there, which is really good. Well, I was like, I know that name, but I couldn't remember why. He was the chaplain of the U.S. Senate a long time ago, in the 50s, I guess. And but he found, I just kept, I Googled it, and there was this quote that came up in there, and it said that, may we think of freedom not as the right to do as we please, but as the opportunity to do what is right. Wow, what freedom that is. Yeah, what's going on with, mask. Masks have seemed to be this, well, it's my freedom not to wear a mask. Well, that's true, but it's also dangerous. There's an opportunity to do what's right, to care for each other, and to make sure that we keep one another safe. My 10th grade World Civ teacher used to have a line, and she's, because we talked about some of these freedom things, and, you're snarky high schoolers. And they would say, well, it's my freedom, or it's my right, or I can do this. It's not. Her great line is, and I still remember this, that our rights and privileges stop where they begin to diminish and take away from other people's rights and privileges. You can go as far as you want, do what you want to do, until it gets to somebody else's doorstep. That's when it becomes not right. I love that definition. Do what you want to, as long as it doesn't hurt somebody else. Doesn't impact their life. Decide not to stop at the stoplight when it's red. There's a problem. There's a crash. Seems like there's one a week down at Benjamin Parkway and Josephine Boyd Street, right down there by the house, and I've heard them inside my kitchen. Because people can't slow down just a little bit and take care of one another. It's important. It's important. And then I got around to freedom. And freedom that given to us in baptism is just awing. The responsibility that comes through that little water in that little dish that just comes out of the fountain, and we pray over it. Wow. Gift of baptism. And part of this, there's a series of questions. You can look it up in the hymnal. But this one is the one I think today that's important for us. Do you accept the freedom and power God gives you to resist evil, injustice, and oppression in whatever forms they present themselves? If so, say, I do. That's one of those questions that we ask over and over again. To resist evil, injustice, and oppression. Right there at the beginning of the journey. People are like, well, I didn't think I was getting into that. Well, it's the historic questions for baptism that we're called to defend and to work for against injustices, evil, and oppression in whatever forms they find themselves. It's part of the gift, I guess, of this Love and Justice sermon series that we've put together again for this year. This is, I think, the fourth year we've done this now. It's good. Y'all get to hear some other people's perspective other than just mine. That's one thing I like about it for you. The other thing is we see people who are out working in the world who've taken the gospel in their lives and are beginning to work for transformation, to fight against oppression, to be able to move the world into a different way, in a different light. It's important for us to hear that and to see that in other people's, that we can participate in what they're doing and also what we are called to do in our baptism. What are we called to do to change the world? Where are we called to take our staffs and our sandals and go out into the world, to not be burdened down by heavy luggage, to go off into the world to change things? So it's important. But I thought, well, what would help set that stage for us as we look forward to that? I looked it up in the HarperCollins Bible Dictionary. Pretty quick little search, not that thing. Love in the Bible is a relationship of self-giving. What do I give of myself to the world, to others? That's how we love. That's how we care for people. Oh, there's a whole lot of nuances about love, and it takes more than just a little bit of effort or a box of chocolates to say that we love one another. Love is a relationship of self-giving. And that's part of what we're called to do. I mean, ultimately, our author and perfecter of our faith, the model of our faith is Jesus the Christ, the one who loved the world, the whole world, not just our world, but the whole world, enough to die on a cross and to raise for our sakes, that we may know life and know eternally. And we're called to love our neighbor as ourselves. And justice. Justice is the standard by which the benefits and penalties of living in a society are distributed. The benefits, the goodness of our society is part of justice, and also the limitations of living in a society and a culture. I always think of that, used to in school, if you were, the class was rowdy one day, I don't know, it was snowing outside, or it was really hot, or it was Friday, or the holiday was going to start tomorrow, something like that. And, there were always 3 or 4 or 5 students that were just off the walls, misbehaving. And so the whole class would lose PE or ice cream, or have to write a page paper, or write sentences together, or something. But it was a blanket statement to the whole group, not just those 2 or 3 or 4. I was always, pretty good kid in school. I didn't get in trouble. I would probably talk too much, but some of you said that hadn't changed. But we all kind of had to suffer together. And that's the same thing with justice. Until there's some that don't have enough, then we're all suffering together. It's not really living out our call and living out God's kingdom in the world. Oh, there's still a lot of work to do. Don't give up. Know that Christ sends not only the disciples out long ago, but sends the disciples out that you are. Take the staff, take your sandals, be prepared. Know that God goes with you. And you too can bring freedom and healing and love into the world in which it so desperately needs. All glory, honor, and power be to the one who was, who is, and who is to come. Amen.